Hey, it's Denise. I just wanted to do a quick update on my indoor gardening, just to show that just because you live in an apartment doesn't mean you can't do a little bit of gardening. In an earlier video, I had mentioned a book, and I couldn't think of the name of it at the moment, and I didn't have the book at hand. But this is the book I was talking about. If you can get your hands on a copy of this, The Complete Squash, and notice that the spelling is a little different. It is by Amy Goldman. It's, first of all, it's a beautiful book. If you're someone like me who is a fan of pumpkins and anything in the squash family, it's a beautiful book. It is full of pictures and information on all the different, it is a thick, it's a thick book, as you can see. I don't know that it's in print currently. I got my copy about a year ago, I want to say. I got it through Amazon and I had to buy it used because there were no new copies available. But you can see that I lucked out, and if you haven't bought used books through Amazon, they do give you a description as to the condition of the book. And mine, the only thing it said that it was in, very good condition. This little tiny rip in the paper cover was all that was wrong with it, and I certainly over the last year have leafed through it several times. I don't know if this information on the back helps you to track it down, or if that's just specific to where I got it. That might just be specific to where I got it from. But it gives you all kinds of information about the different kinds of squash, their preferred growing conditions, a little bit of their history, where they come from, which gives you an idea of what kind of climates they like, which ones are considered better eating versus, some of the varieties we're used to are really great decorative, great jack-o'-lanterns, not necessarily what everybody's focus should be on growing this year in terms of being nutritious and tasty. And you've got your summer squash, like your zucchini and things that you eat while they still have a soft skin and you eat them fresh. And then you've got your winter squash, which you tend to let mature until they've got a hard skin. They can be, then if you cure them properly, they will often keep, at a cool temperature, just like if you don't have a root cellar, just at the bottom of even a relatively cool closet or something, once they've been cured, they will keep generally for several months at least. So that's really why they're called winter squash. Obviously, they're grown in the summer. And I'm saying this in case you're a new gardener. I certainly hope there are a lot of new gardeners this year, because we're seeing what's happening at the grocery stores. And I don't say that to panic people. I say it to empower people. I live in an apartment, and if I can be attempting to grow, now granted, I'm trying to grow a relatively small squash, but squash vine. Summer squash, like zucchini, some of them are more likely to grow in a bushy habit, I should say. They're still a large plant, but they're more bushy. Most of the winter squash have a vining habit, which means if I'm trying to grow them indoors, I'm going to have to give them something to climb up. I'm really going to have to stay on top of trimming back excess leaves. Not so much that it stops the plant from being able to form fruit, because, it needs those leaves to be making energy for the rest of the plant. But like I said, I'm growing it in an apartment, so I can't have it running around the floor. I definitely want to be trying to trellis it or give it something to climb up. I'm also hoping, obviously this is a copyrighted book, or else, I'd be showing you like the whole pages, and I'm going to just show the picture of the variety I'm growing. I'm not going to show you all the text, because, again, it's a copyrighted book, and, I don't want to be taking away from the person who owns the copyright. But this is the variety that I'm trying to grow. They're relatively small. These, you're looking at like a 1.5 pound squash. So you can almost think of it as like a single person squash. and like a single serving squash, as opposed to some of the bigger varieties that we're used to. I have now, if you will pardon the messy walk out to my hallway, I showed it to you when I first started my Aerogardens, and you can see some of the changes. You can also see what a total disaster zone my gardening materials have become as I'm moving stuff around. The seed collection's still up here. Any of my neighbors, if they see this video, I hope they realize I have plenty of seeds and that I'm happy to share them if they want to start any gardening. Out here are my containers of mixed soil that I'm working with. Now here are my three, we're out in the hall, that's why it's bright. It's my tall Aerogarden. I don't have anything in the end Aerogarden yet. These over here, now we had some success, some failures, some I've moved out already. The green ones are broccoli, so I'm gonna have to get them out to a larger container soon. The red are amaranth, which can grow to be like 10 feet tall and bushy. So obviously that will have to get into a big container and outside, weather permitting. Now, in my zone, it's like almost 2 months before weather's permitting for anything that won't take the cold. Now, brassicas, like the broccoli or cabbage, you can put them out a little earlier. A light frost probably won't hurt them. I've never grown amaranth. I believe it needs a warmer climate, so I don't want to take a chance by putting it out early. Now I had moved some things that I was just like, you know what, it's not working trying to get them to sprout in an Aerogarden environment. And so I put them those little biodegradable bags I was telling you about. They feel like the material sort of that, like, oh God, my hands are dry. Ignore that ugly skin. Like almost like what a tea bag is made out of. I have them folded down just so, I mean, as the plant gets taller, if it needs, right there, after I put them in there and I turn them around, I couldn't close the lid with, I did have them neatly with names. I swear, look, see the name tags? I had 3 different things: the buttercup squash, some sugar snap peas, and some green beans. And the little lid, the plastic dome you put over it to keep the humidity in to help them initially germinate, wouldn't go on with the lids. And then I realized that I had turned them around and I had no idea which was which. It became immediately clear that these 3 big ones that I looked, you know, one day there's nothing and you look the next day and these are pushing up against the plastic lid. These are obviously the squash. Having grown squash before, I know this is what baby squash looks like. Now, I have in this muck bucket, which is probably 2.5 feet across, I guess I want to say. Yeah, probably 2.5 feet across. I'm putting these 3 plants, and I'm hoping, I know squash are heavy feeders. I'm hoping by keeping them well fed that they will, I can show you the rest while we're here. I can zoom in a little, right? The 4 potato plants, you can see I've pretty much filled the buckets up to the top. So now it's a matter of letting the potato plants just grow and run their course, and along their roots, hopefully they will grow potatoes. Now, like I mentioned before, those were dumpster dove potatoes. I got them, they would have been in the landfill. They were actually still perfectly good and edible when I got them, but they said I'd gotten a bunch and some of them just sat around too long before I got around. I canned a bunch of them, you know, pressure canned so that they're shelf stable. But some of them sat around and started getting too soft. So I just waited to see if they would sprout, because if they are organic, which these were, they should not have been sprayed with any sort of sprout inhibitor, which obviously these were not. But these are relatively small buckets. They're probably 2 or 3 gallon buckets that they're in. So I feel like I put 1 free potato that was rescued from the landfill in each bucket. If I get 2 or 3 potatoes out of a bucket, I would be thrilled, because that would be 12 fresh potatoes out of basically what would have been garbage, what would have been nothing. So in a couple months to have some fresh potatoes coming in would be awesome. My carrots are, there's plenty of little seedlings. I don't think I buried them deep enough, because when I go to water them, you would think a monsoon happened. So I feel like I'm being really careful trying to give them a chance to grow some deeper roots, while at the same time I don't want to underwater them and have that be what kills them. I will succession grow. I will try to grow more carrots. I will plant them deeper. But like I said, I rearranged, instead of the potatoes being in there's that door at the end of the hall with my favorite sign. You can't see it from here, really. It says #1 best mom. And yeah, it was a number of years ago when my son made that. He's 17 now and, not expressing such mushy sentiments, at least not in writing. But yeah, that's what's on it's essentially a room I use for storage. And so yeah, being that the Aerogarden throws all this extra grow light, there's the strawberry plants. You can see I moved the 5 that were doing well over onto that side, and I got rid of the ones that clearly were dead. So hopefully that will be a productive strawberry patch over on that side. Over here, what do I have? I should remember. I have, I'm cheating, I'm looking at my list. I have bok choy. These guys are purple lady bok choy, which is a small variety of, it's an Asian green. It's like a small individual sort of individual size, almost cabbage. It's, if you know, like a Napa cabbage, not like a tight head shaped cabbage, but more of like an upright cylindrical kind of cabbage with looser leaves. Bok choy is more like that, and the purple lady are small and, as the name implies, purple. So I'll want to get them probably. They may actually be able to just grow right where they are in the Aerogarden, because they don't get very big. In fact, I believe there's something that Aerogarden sells. They're pre-seeded. You can buy these little cups pre-seeded from the Aerogarden company directly, and I've had mixed success. Their cherry tomatoes have done awesome for me. Whatever variety of cherry tomato they put in there obviously is made for hydroponic gardening, and they are super producers. But I've gotten other things from them that just did not do well. I don't know if during transit, if the seeds maybe fall out of the, how they're packaged in there. If you buy their pre-seeded one, it would be like this cup, which I've shown you guys, right? The plastic cups that the grow sponge is in. If you get a pre-seeded one from them, you would have that. It would have like a paper label over it telling you what it is, with like a little crisscross opening, so as the seedling starts to pop out, it can come out. And then you put they have like little plastic domes that you put over it while it's germinating to help keep the humidity in. But like I said, I've had better luck with putting my own seeds into the grow sponges. You can buy the whole setup of the grow sponges, the little plastic cup things there, the little plastic lids. They even sell the little paper labels to put over if you felt so inclined. I never really, when I'm starting my own seeds, I generally keep track of what they are. I never felt the need to use those really. But yeah, and let me just show you a quick, I showed you these, which are the broccoli and what else did I say? The red, or the amaranth. Here you can see it looks like a broccoli seed must have fallen into the amaranth. So I'm gonna have to be careful when I take that one out. I want to try to save everybody when it's time to. The next step will be to put them into like those bags, which are like trying to just give you for size reference, probably maybe 3 inches or so across. They're kind of like little squares once you open them, maybe 3 inches or so across and a little bit taller. And I think I'm doing a video. I'm not sure if that's a bean or a pea, because like I said, they got turned around. These were really easy to identify because of how fast they sprouted and the shape of them and how big they are. I knew they were the squash. I think that's a pea plant, but I'm not enough of an expert between peas and beans. I'm going to give it like another week. If nobody else germinates, I will put something else in there and let it germinate. I'm waiting also for more of these. I ordered some of the plastic trays that don't have the drainage holes in the bottom so that I can do some plants that will then water from the bottom. You know, the soil soaks it up from the bottom instead of you having to water the plants from the top without worrying that it's dripping all over your counter or table or wherever you may have it. Last thing I wanted to show you, it's a little bit dark in here. This would be the other grow area where this is where the purchased seed potatoes. I'm hoping the grow light in here is enough that you can see. Like this bucket has these are the muck buckets again, so they're the larger buckets. For a moment, let me back off there on the zoom so you can see the 3 larger buckets. Each has a grow light pointing down on it. So this one has, going back on the zoom, there are 3 seed potatoes in there, and we have 1. Can you see that? It looks like a little stick. 2, it's the beginning of a plant. And then I'm over them somewhere. You notice I'm looking straight down on them, which makes it an awkward angle to actually see that there's a plant. There we go. 3. So all 3 seed potatoes in that one are growing. These are bigger, so I'm going to back off on the zoom. You can definitely see 1, 2, and the beginnings of 3 over there. This bucket, remember there were 8 seed potatoes in the pack, so this one got 2, and there's 1 over there and 1 over here. So it would appear that all 8 of my seed potatoes have taken off. As they get a little taller, I'm going to bury them. You know, then they get a little taller, then you bury them until you fill all the way up to the top of the pot, because each time you bury them, that part becomes root, and where there's root, that's where it grows potatoes. So you don't want to just leave this half filled and let the plant get big. Like these taller ones, honestly, I would be ready to bury up. I'm just trying to let the shorter ones catch up a little bit. And that's how you'll get your best potato growth. Also, you never want to eat green potatoes. They're poisonous. And if they're grown with sunlight on them, they will be green. The skin will look green. It will look like a tinge of green under the skin. Don't eat that. So it's important that you keep the potatoes buried where the sun isn't shining directly on the part of the plant, which is the roots. Anything below the surface is where your potatoes are going to grow, because they grow off the roots. And it's important you keep it well covered. I've heard of people just using hay or straw to cover, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it allows too much sun to get through, and they end up with a bunch of green potatoes that they can't use. So just wanted to show you that in an apartment, you can get creative. You can definitely grow food. You can, whether you're doing it hydroponically, in buckets, in cheap pots that you got for free, you can do it. And don't let the fact that you're in an apartment stop you. Like I said, I am probably going to just throw some herbs in my smaller Aerogarden. It's hard to tell by the angle, but that one, the growing space, like from the light to where the plants are, is only about 10 inches. So littler plants do better in there. In fact, I probably could have, if it had more space, I could have gotten the strawberries in there, because they don't get tall, but I was afraid in there they might be a little too crowded. And of course, I'm also hoping that after they put some strawberries out, maybe they'll put out some runners, and then I'll have additional strawberry plants next year. And like I said, as things get bigger, the next step will be put them in those bags, to give them some more space to grow while I can wait for it to be time to put them into something that can go outside, which, like I said, I got close to 2 months before anything tender can go outside. Something that can take a light frost, like I said, like the broccoli. I'm going to hold off as long as possible inside, but when I start running out of room, I'm going to have to put them out. And just to hope that between pests and the weather that they do well. That's the other thing. I feel like indoors you've got more control. Last year my squash were mostly all killed, both summer and winter varieties, by squash bugs. Squash bugs and vine borers are things that will decimate your squash. I feel like I dumped all of my soil that was in my containers last year because you don't want to reuse. I mean, I don't even know that you'd want to compost it knowing that it had, that kind of infestation. So I dumped it all, and that's why I'm using this mix that I mentioned in the earlier video, Coco Core, which you get it dehydrated like a brick, and it really springs up, and it holds the soil. It's not feeding your plants. You're going to have to add plant food, but it helps retain moisture, and it's a space, and it'll stay kind of loose. Some of that, some perlite, if you can get it. I'm doing the Zoom thing. Organic perlite, which is like little round white pebbles, and it helps just keep the space in your soil, and also helps keeps it aerated, keeps it from compacting, what you want. Worm castings, aka worm poop, which you can buy at garden supply stores, are a great addition to your soil in terms of food. With seedlings, you want to be gentle. You don't want to use any strong, even if it's organic, you don't want to go with any strong plant food right away because you can burn their little tender roots. So once they start growing more, then I'll start mixing liquid plant food into their water. But that's it. I just wanted to give an update and show people, yes, this can be done in an apartment, in a hallway that you're not really using. As you can see, my Aerogarden farm is sitting up on a bench, which lets it shed the light, not just on the plants directly that it's meant to be growing, but also in this whole hallway area, and the plants are thriving. So I'm hoping that these don't get root bound, being that they are large plants. I'm hoping if I keep them adequately fertilized, because like I said, they will be heavy feeders being large plants, I'm hoping their roots will be able to take up enough nutrition and water, even though they're in a limited amount of soil. And we'll have to get creative when the time comes to trellis or support them when they want to start vining. Anyway, I'm hoping by having them indoors that I won't have, in all new soil that has never been outside. It's not even really soil. The coconut core is more like sort of like a peat moss kind of a thing. It's not really soil. It does great things though for helping keep moisture in your soil. And you have to be careful when you're growing indoors. None of these pots obviously have drainage holes on the bottom because I wouldn't want them leaking on my floor. So you have to be careful not to overwater, because you can easily kill your plants by having them sitting essentially in mud. So especially in containers that can't drain, you want to make sure that, put your hand on the soil, go down a couple inches with your fingers, see if it feels moist. You don't want to overdo it and drown your plants. These little trays that water from the bottom and sort of let the soil soak up water from the bottom as it needs it are also a good way to water your plants, while they're small at least. And of course, anything that's being grown hydroponically, enough of the plant is above water, so that the roots are in the water getting the nutrients, and the rest of the plant is above, getting the artificial sunlight. So you can see the progress from when I started. I hope that inspires you, and let's all be self-reliant in terms of some food production this year. And let's all also think about our neighbors who might not be physically well enough. Perhaps they're elderly, perhaps they're just not physically able. If you are physically able, try to grow not just enough for you, but enough to share. If there is any kind of food chain issues, we want to make sure that we're all being as self-reliant as possible. And if that means gardening for the first time, and even if it means gardening like this in an apartment with some grow lights and some cheap buckets, and do it. Plant a garden, whatever version of a garden that is for you, and try to make it as productive as possible with calorie dense and nutrition dense foods. Nobody wants to see the current situation drag out for a long time, and of course we're all hoping that it clears up as soon as possible. But some of the medical specialists, health specialists, are telling us very different things than the politicians are telling us. And this could go on for a while. So being self-sufficient and being in a position to help your neighbors who might not be as self-sufficient, the more of us who garden, the less we have to worry about food shortage, and the less dependent we are on the supermarkets, where it's not necessarily in your best interest to be going in terms of trying to, social distance. And, you make that, for me, it's 45 minutes to get to a Walmart or a large supermarket. To drive all the way there, waste the gas driving 45 minutes there and 45 minutes home, only to find out they don't have any of the things I went there for. It's a waste of my resources, and it's just better to have the stuff growing at home. And like I said, if you're somewhere in a warmer climate, which is probably most people, you can be gardening outside. But I hope this shows people who are in a colder climate, or who are in an apartment where your landlord, even in these times, isn't letting people garden, which I would hope that people can have open conversations with their landlords about the fact that their perfect lawn would be an even more perfect garden, and encourage their tenants to, back in the day, my grandmother referred to them as victory gardens. During the war, World War II would have been her time period. And I think we all need to be thinking of victory gardens as well, only our enemy, of course, is a virus. So speak to your landlord. The grass will grow back next year if they let you turn it into a garden this year. The grass will grow back if they're worried about that. It's only grass. It will grow back. It's more important that people are growing food right now. So keep that in mind and do the best you can. Keep your spirits up. I know looking at this makes my heart feel good. It makes me happy to see, life is going on. My plants think it's spring, even though it's still cold outside. In here, they think it's spring. And I feel good also hoping that, like I said, these are small pots to be trying to grow potatoes in. The ones in the larger buckets stand up, better chance of having a larger yield. But free buckets and free potatoes, I wasn't going to pass that up. To try to get even a few potatoes out of each one would be great. And, like I said, I'm not paying extra for the grow lights on these because they're getting the light from the Aerogardens. So there are ways that you can do it and save as much money as possible while also adding to your food independence. And like I said, let's not do this just out of selfishness. Let's do this to try to help our neighbors as well. And if everyone would do that, we wouldn't have to worry about a shortage of fresh produce. I hope everyone is staying inside as much as possible. This enemy is spreading, and we all know it. As someone in upstate New York, you look at the maps and you see, New York City is the epicenter of the virus, not just in the US, but in the world right now. And watching it crawl up county by county, towards where I live, there are cases in my county now. There are also a lot of people with vacation homes in our county who have fled New York City and come up here, no doubt bringing the virus with them. And it just becomes less and less safe to go out to the stores. So the more you can be self-reliant and have stuff at home, the better off you are. And that's it on my lecture. I just didn't want it to sound lecture-y. I just wanted to show you what can be done in a small space. This is literally a hallway. That's just, that junk there at the top of my railing on my stairs, that's probably all gonna have to be moved so that I can make something for these to climb up. But yeah, in a hallway, in an apartment, I've got a garden going, so you can do it too. And keep up your good spirits. Remember, we're all in this together, even if we're home. In spirit, let's all remember that we're doing this together. And let's let it bring out the best in us as people and not give in to any of those panic-driven, fear-driven feelings that make people not be the best version of themselves. Let's try to help each other through this. I hope you're all well, and stay inside and grow a garden.